All right, we'll get started. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into tonight's session on Boston College's residential life and dining. If you've been tuning into these panels for the past few weeks, my face is not super unfamiliar to you. If this is your first time joining, my name is Jackie Geller, and I'm a senior at Boston College, where I major in communication in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I minor in finance in our Carroll School of Management. And I'm one of the creators of these panels, as well as the media coordinator of the Student Admission Program, which is one of our student-led organizations that helps bring programs like this to all of you. Tonight, we're talking about two very exciting aspects of Boston College, which is residential life and dining. I remember in high school when our class schedules would come out and so many students would be so excited to talk about what classes they got into as well as their teachers. That level of excitement basically translates to residential life at Boston College. When everyone comes back from the summer breaks, everyone talks about where they're living. And even when I meet alumni to this day, their first question that they ask me is, where are you living? So before we even get into that, I am going to share a very fun fact about residential life at Boston College, which is that on your freshman year, you're going to be living on campus. Your sophomore year, you're on campus. Junior year, half of your grade is on campus, half of your grade is off campus. And then senior year, around 95% of seniors decide to come back to campus to spend their last year here, which is really awesome. I'm really excited to go into a lot of topics tonight, whether that be our different freshman campuses, where upperclassmen live, what suite style housing is like, and the different dining options. And I can most definitely sit here and basically just rattle off a bunch of questions to our panelists, but we really want to get all of the questions that you guys have, since you are the ones trying to figure out if BC is the right fit for you. So on the bottom of your screens, you'll see a little Q&A button. Feel free to click on that anytime throughout this panel and submit any questions that you have. I will try to get to as many as possible. Additionally, if you scroll over our little boxes, you'll see our name as well as our BC email. If anyone says anything that kind of piques your interest, feel free to send us an email after this panel. We'll be extremely excited to answer that for you. So as you can tell, I am not alone tonight. I have a bunch of panelists who are super excited to get to your questions as well. So I'm going to have them say their name, their grade, their major, their minor, and their hometown as well, just to break the ice a little bit. So we'll get started with Maimuna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maimuna Star. I'm a junior studying applied psychology and human development within the Lynch School of Education and Human Development. I also have a minor in women and gender studies in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm originally from Newton, Massachusetts.
Awesome. Hi, Maimuna. So my question for you is, since you are a junior at Boston College, you've obviously had your fair share of BC dining. So I'm just going to rattle off a few questions. If you can answer a couple of them, that would be great. But can you kind of just tell us how dining works on campus? What are the food options like? How does a debit system work at BC? And how many years do you need to have a meal plan?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you so much for asking. So in terms of dining here at BC, we have three larger dining style locations. So McElroy Commons, Corcoran Commons, and then we have Stewart Dining Hall, which is on one of our smaller campuses, Newton campus. We also have numerous cafe options for students. And in terms of our dining system, what's important to note about it is that it's an a la carte system. It's not a swiping system. So everything you get, you pay for. You'll find that a lot of students are nervous about this when first coming on campus because they're afraid they're going to sort of run out of money right off the bat. But I personally haven't found this to be an issue. In fact, this money transfers over per semester and not per year. So you'll find by the end of the semester, a lot of students are kind of frantically raiding the dining halls and trying their best to get rid of that money. But that is on our larger main dining hall system. But we also have a system called Eagle Bucks, which transfers over to some of our smaller cafe options here at BC. One of my personal favorites is the Chocolate Bar, which is housed in Stokes Hall. That is home to our humanities. So that personally has a lot of grab and go options, coffee and tea for the mornings, croissants, great cookies. So not only will you find those larger dining hall locations where you can use your main sort of dining hall system, but we also have Eagle Bucks, which transfers over to those smaller dining hall locations as well as laundry. So those are used for smaller essentials, I'd say.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Maimuna. Next, we can have Scotty introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scotty Frank. I am from Morris Plains, New Jersey. I'm a biology major in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences on an MD PhD track.
Amazing. Hi, Scotty. So you are the president of the Residential Hall Association. So it is an honor to have you on this panel tonight. I was wondering, as president, can you kind of go into what the organization's responsibilities look like?
Absolutely. So RHA, or the Residence Hall Association, our real main goal is to make everyone on campus feel like BC is home. So we'll throw on various events where it's targeted towards the sophomore plus community or really the freshman community. In fact, the freshman communities in each one of the residence communities has their own council that runs events and puts on events. For example, in Keys Hall this weekend, they had a haunted elevator, if you've ever seen the SNL skit, where they went up and down the floors and there was a fright on every flight with movies downstairs in the lounge along with food. That was really fun to see. But we'll also throw in larger events for the main campus right in front of Gasson. You will commonly see us throwing on events that include spray painting t-shirts, and really just anything to make our BC community feel more like home.
Great. Thanks, Scotty. All right, we can move on to Izzy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Izzy Wiley. I'm a senior at Boston College studying music and psychology in the Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences, and I'm from Leesburg, Virginia.
Hi, Izzy. I see you almost every single day, but I'm kind of liking this Zoom change of scenery. So, as you probably noticed, everyone knows on this panel, everyone has such a unique housing path at BC. So I was wondering if you could briefly explain your journey, as now you're a senior. So if you can kind of like briefly go over where you lived every year, how many roommates you had, things like that.
Of course. So freshman year, I was on Newton campus. I was actually in Duchesne. Jackie and I lived on the same hall, and we're still friends today. So in Duchesne, typically, or I guess in all freshman dorms, there's doubles, triples, and quads. I was in a double. I actually ran in with my roommate, had a lovely experience. I loved her a lot. You met everybody on your floor, especially on Newton, because Duchesne's a little bit isolated, but all of my friends today, I would say 90% of them are from our hall. And then we also have our own dining hall, which is super nice. Stuart was great. The lines were not as long as the other places, and the food was really good. And then sophomore year, we got placed into Walsh. I lived with Jackie and a couple other roommates. There were 8 of us, so that meant there were 4 doubles and 2 bathrooms and a common room space, which was so nice to go from having communal bathrooms freshman year to having our own bathroom sophomore year. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people are in Walsh. I think it's like 9-ish floors or so of just sophomores, which was a lot of fun. And then junior year, I actually lived off campus, and that was during COVID, which was really fun too. I lived with 3 other girls. It was 1 double, 2 singles, so I had my own room. We lived on Gerald Road, which is about a 20-minute walk or so away from campus, which is so doable. And then senior year, I'm back on campus in Rubenstein Hall. I'm living in a 6-man, which is very common. There's 6-man, there's 4-mans. You can go back to a double if you would like to. There's some singles. There's some 8-mans depending on what you want. But I live in a 6-man with 2 bathrooms, and I have a direct roommate, so it's all doubles, which is super nice.
Thank you so much, Izzy. And lastly, we'll have Michael introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Prieta. I am a first-year graduate student at the School of Theology and Ministry here at BC. However, I was an undergrad here at BC. I graduated in 2019, and I was a triple major in theology, philosophy, and economics. And I'm also an RA. This is my 3rd year as an RA at BC. I spent 2 years in the first year area, and this year I'm in the upper class area.
Hi, Michael. And just for everyone who's tuning in at home, a little background on that as well. So Michael was an RA in Duchesne Hall the same year that Izzy and I lived in Duchesne. As I said before, he graduated. Now he's back at BC, and now he's the RA for my building on my floor. So kind of like a full 360 moment for me, which is kind of crazy. But Michael, if you can kind of like go back to what it was like to be an RA for first year students, I would love it if you can kind of describe like how RAs help students transition from being a high school student to being in college.
Yeah, thanks. I had a great experience as an RA for first year students. As I mentioned, I was an RA for 2 years in Duchesne, which is a living and learning community for the Perspectives community. And that's a great experience. And the transition from high school to college can be a very difficult experience for a lot of folks. And so community building is such an integral and important aspect of that transition. And BC takes that very seriously. And so developing a good relationship with your RA, your fellow residents on your floor and in your building is so important in terms of, getting used to this new environment of being at college. And the transition could be difficult, but BC has a lot of supports and resources to help you, and so you're never alone in any context when you come to BC. So it's just a great community experience and living experience, and it's such an important time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So I already see questions coming in through the Q&A. I'm super excited to get through them. And I see that my panelists as well have already started to answer some of the questions. So that's great. I'm actually going to take one of the questions that Scotty's already answering and kind of switch it up a little bit. I think it's a little bit more like focused towards freshmen. But if anyone wants to kind of talk about the difference between Newton and Upper Campus, I think that would be a really great place to start this panel because that is our two freshman campuses.
For sure. So as a first year student, there are two primary places you will be living. So we have Upper Campus, which is closer to our main campus here at BC, where about 60% of our first year class resides. And then we also have Newton Campus, where about 40% of our first year class resides. And the important thing to note about Newton Campus is that it's actually a self-sustaining campus. So it has its own gym. It's home to the BC Law School, so it has a law library. And it's also known for one of the best dining halls, Stewart Dining Halls, I've heard. And it's about a 10-minute shuttle bus ride away from main campus. So I think this may sound daunting to a lot of students, especially maybe in being farther from sort of the main campus and what that entails. However, I've heard from people who have lived on Newton before that it's been a great community, especially because it's only first year students, and you commute back to main campus to take your classes. So the process of living on Newton or Upper Campus is fairly random, with the exception of applying into something we have called living learning communities. And these are communities you can apply into based on an aspect of your own identity or a passion of yours. And the majority of our living learning communities are housed on Upper Campus, but we also have some on Newton. Just to name a few, we have our Costa All Women's Living Learning Community. This is a space for female identifying students to connect and talk towards women and gender issues. We have our Multicultural Living Learning Community, which is a space for students of color to connect and seek support among their transition here at BC. And then the living learning communities we have on Newton campus are the BC First Living Learning Community, which is for first generation college students. We have the Perspectives Living Learning Community, which is the class that fulfills philosophy and theology core. And then I believe we have the Healthy Living Learning Community, which aims to promote healthy choices for first year students. So there's a range of ways you can get involved in residential life here at BC, and a great way is living learning communities. If you don't apply to live in a community like this, however, the process of living on Newton or Upper is fairly random.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maimuna. I can also say Maimuna gave out the really, really great fact that there's 60% of freshmen who get assigned to Upper, there's 40% on Newton. And I have yet to meet someone who didn't like the campus that they lived on. Every single year, the seniors get polled and they get asked if you could relive your freshman year, where would you live? And shocker, 60% say Upper and 40% say Newton. We are very, very loyal to where we live. Some of my best friends that I met who live on Upper Campus, they will swear by the fact that Upper is the best. But as Izzy knows, I am a big Newton girl. I love Newton so much, and I will basically go to my grave saying that Newton was the best place to live. So as a freshman, really be curious, really be interested in where you get assigned and things like that. It's really awesome. All right, another question that I see is about junior housing. We can talk about that as well. So junior housing, as I mentioned before, it's half of your grade is going to be on campus, half of the grade is going to be off campus. So if anyone wants to chat about that, that would be awesome.
I can take that one. Typically, I also saw someone who asked about 3 years and 4 years guaranteed housing, and that typically plays into the junior year housing. When you get your acceptance letter from BC, they will say whether you have 3 years or 4 years guaranteed housing. Basically, what that means is freshman year and sophomore year are pretty much guaranteed that you'll be living on campus unless you choose not to. Sophomore year, freshman year, I'm fairly certain that you do have to live on campus, and that is going to be random wherever you live, unless you do a living learning community like what's been talked about. So if you're guaranteed 3 years of housing, typically junior year is the year you go off. And that's honestly probably because most people study abroad. My plan was that I was going to be abroad in the spring, so I would live off in the fall. You get someone to sublease an apartment with you, depending on how big you want to go. There's houses with like 14 people. I lived in a house with 4 girls. There's two like apartments for 2 people, 3 people. Really depends. There's so much off-campus housing. There's realtors that BC actually gives you their number and their email so you can reach out. A lot of people use the same realtors. So you're able to find a location that a lot of other BC students are living. And typically, all the students, it's kind of like a big circle. Most of us, the school's in the middle, most of us are surrounding the school. I would say the closest is like a 5 minute walk. The furthest away that I've heard is maybe like a 20 to 30 minute walk. Um, so junior year, if you get 4 years of guaranteed housing, you can choose to stay on campus or you can choose to go off. I actually know some people, some of Jackie and I's really good friends had 4 years of guaranteed housing and they actually chose to stay off because sometimes it could be cheaper. We lived during the COVID times, right when everybody was getting kicked off. So a lot of people weren't sure what on campus housing was going to look like. So a lot of people decided to stay off. But in the off chance that you would like to live on campus and you only have 3 years of housing, you can appeal. It takes a little bit of a process, and you can basically say, like, I want to live on campus for these specific reasons. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't, but both are great. I loved living off campus. I was able to do more things. I felt a little bit more at ease with COVID. I could kind of do a little bit more of what we wanted, but also within reason. And everybody comes and visits the off campus apartments. Everybody loves to go visit them. It's basically like going to a home, which is what I really enjoyed. So, whatever experience you choose, whatever experience you have, are both going to be great.
Thanks, Izzy. Did anyone on this panel live on campus by any chance their junior year?
I did actually.
Awesome.
So my junior year, I lived in Stair Hall, which is really new. I lived in an 8-man style suite, and I loved living on campus. It was feet from the dining hall. I'm not a great cook, so that was really nice for me. I loved living with 7 other guys. It was really a fun experience. We had a great common room. Stair Hall is some of the nicest study spaces on campus, in my opinion. I'm a little biased, but it is gorgeous. It looks right onto Com Ave, and right where the T stop is. And it's really a brand new hall. I can't say enough nice things about Stair.
Awesome. Thanks, Scotty. I actually lived in Stayer as well. I can't believe I never seen you in that building. I guess we do have a lot of people in that building, but I was also on campus. I was also in an 8-person suite, and I could not recommend Stayer enough. I thought it was a phenomenal place to live as a junior. All right, another question that is coming in. I'm like kind of trying to mix a bunch of questions into one. I think that we can all kind of go around and answer this, but my question for all of you is, how did you find your freshman year roommate? Did you find them through the Facebook group that BC makes? Did you go random? Did you the BC poll that they send out? Like, how did that happen?
I could definitely speak on this. I have a really good experience, especially with my roommates. I went through Facebook and found who is my roommate. Now I'm blocked with him in housing, meaning I live right next to him 4 years later. So I had a really good experience with that. But one of my current roommates found his roommate randomly. He went random and they've been best friends for 3 years and they live right next to me in the room right over. So we have a really good mix of people finding each other and people finding each other randomly through BC. And a lot of people had really good experiences with both.
Yeah, I could speak to that as well. I actually opted for a living and learning community my freshman year. I lived in Medeiros, which at the time was a living and learning community. And I really wanted to opt for that because of the intentional environment of being in a living and learning community. And so my roommate was random, but nonetheless within that community with me as well. And we got along great and contacted each other through email prior to living together. So that was a good experience. Having been in the living and learning community world for 3 years of my undergraduate experience, I would definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested in intentional living and being in a community that's oriented towards something that, specific. So that was my experience.
I went random freshman year. I filled out the BC survey, which basically is probably what you expect it to be. It's how do you live? Do you like quiet? Do you like having people over? And it's basically just a rating scale, like how clean you are, and you get matched. And I think I had something like, I don't know, like 90 something percent with my roommate. I also texted her beforehand before we moved in and talked a little bit, but she's from Boston and I'm from Virginia, so we couldn't meet beforehand. I had a really good experience with her. I loved rooming with her. But it was ironic that she actually did the living learning community that goes through Duchesne, where you basically get placed there. I did not, and I still ended up in Duchesne. So I'm not quite sure how many people do the living learning community that get placed in Duchesne, but there are also people who don't do it. Jackie's also one of those. She didn't do it either. But it was fun to kind of hang out with everybody who got into the LLC perspectives. But my roommate was great. I honestly recommend doing random as well. You'll have a really good experience.
Yeah, I actually knew my roommate prior. She was from my hometown, so we just sort of coordinated that together. And she was honestly great. It was a great experience to go in with someone familiar, but I also felt like I had a good amount of space within my community to also sort of branch outside of my roommate and meet other people. And a big way I did that was also through living learning communities. I lived in the Costa All Women's LLC, so that was a great way to just meet other first year women who had similar interests. My RA in particular was great at sort of navigating that. She put on a lot of programs for our floor. Some of them were pizza nights, others were writing letters to yourself. And it was a great way to just hang out with other people within my floor and make it a very social atmosphere. So I guess I could say my biggest piece of advice going into the roommate process is to try not to stress about it too much. I think it can be very stressful to come into college as a whole, but also learn how to navigate living with someone else and miss being a student. But I think as long as you're able to live with your roommate and very much get along and coordinate, know that you don't need to be best friends with them. I think I came in with the mindset that I very much had to sort of hang on to my roommate and, you know, be within similar friend groups. And while she was great, I found that by the middle of freshman year, maybe second semester, we were sort of each doing our own things, but we also still had great moments together within the room. So I think it's all about finding that balance.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing all those experiences. Very interesting to hear. I can share mine really quick. Mine was actually quite unique. So as I mentioned before, I'm from New Jersey, and people from New Jersey have this odd infatuation with the idea of going to college in Boston. So when I got into Boston College, I actually had one of my friends from a different high school reach out to me, and she said, one of my best friends just got into Boston College. I think that you guys would vibe really well as roommates. So we actually just got lunch together. We met up and I was like, this would be great to live with you. And she was like, yeah, why not? So we actually just lived together our freshman year, and she was absolutely phenomenal. As Izzy mentioned before, we all lived on the same floor. So Izzy got to know my roommate as well. And like, I'm still like very close to her to this day, which is really awesome. The next question that I have for you is kind of about dining. So obviously we have I think it's around 13 dining locations on campus, whether that's our big dining halls or like getting a quick cup of coffee somewhere. But my question for all of you is, do you find yourselves always getting BC dining, or do you guys like to venture out into the near towns of like maybe Coolidge Corner, Newton Center, Brighton to grab food with friends, or even go into Boston?
I would say it definitely depends on the year. Freshman and sophomore year, I think, are the only two we have to have a mandatory meal plan. And that's sophomore year, some people live in the apartments, but that's a little bit more nuanced. Not a lot of people live there. So freshman year, I think most of us tended to eat in at the dining halls. On weekends, a lot of us would try to go into Boston as much as we can because a lot of us aren't from here. So we tried to explore. I remember, I think our floor went to Boston at least once a month, sometimes more. We went to explore the North End. I actually didn't go to more of Coolidge Corner and the Newton Center, especially more so until junior year, where I lived off campus. That I didn't have a dining plan, and I don't have a dining plan senior year. So we more so cook in or we order out. There's so many restaurants nearby. You can use Uber Eats, you can use Grubhub, you can even go pick it up. So many restaurants, so many really good restaurants too, especially in Newton Center. There's one called Little Big Diner, which I will talk about all day. I went there a lot freshman year and we try to do like we ordered at least once a month because it's just so good and it's so close. So I really think it depends on whether you have a kitchen or not that you will cook in or have a dining plan, but I would definitely say that freshman and sophomore year you will mostly be eating at the dining hall.
I can also add on to that a little bit. So I am an intern over at Mass Ioneer, which is downtown Boston near Government Center, about 4 days a week. So I have a good mix. I have what BC calls the flex meal plan. So you get to choose when you live in a apartment style housing, like I do my senior year this year. And you get to choose the amount you add onto your BC meal plan. So usually I will grab lunch over at the dining hall at Corcoran Commons, and then I will head into near Boston, obviously, and then I will grab dinner there right before heading home. Especially on weekends, I love to go out and try all the food Boston has to offer, especially in the North End, because being from New Jersey, I love Italian food, and North End has some of the best Italian food.
Thank you guys. I completely agree. North End, top notch. Whenever anyone says like, where should you go in Boston to eat? North End, period. I would say it's like mostly composed of these two main streets, and they are just full of Italian restaurants. One of my best friends and I at BC, we have a little tradition that every single time we go to North End, we try a new restaurant just because they're all so amazing. So definitely recommend that if you come to Boston. Another question that I have is, again, I think anyone can answer this because we're all basically upperclassmen or you have a kitchen, but what is it like cooking? So as we mentioned a couple times already, being a freshman, you're on a full meal plan. So there's no kitchen in your room. When you're a sophomore, you're also on a full meal plan. You do get a kitchenette if you're in suite style housing. So that's kind of like allowing you to have a microwave, the coffee maker, things like that. And then starting your junior year, if you are off campus, obviously you're in a house, so you have a kitchen. And then your senior year, the majority, if not all seniors that I believe so, because we're all in suite style housing, you all get a kitchen. So those 2 years of junior and senior year housing, you don't have to have like a mandatory meal plan because you have that kitchen. So what has it been like for you guys to have that? I can also get us started with this. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sorry.
So you're good. You can get started.
Yeah, for me, I actually don't often cook. So I opted for a flex plan through the dining hall, which has been definitely a good option. Though because I'm in an apartment style housing, I have the opportunity to cook if I need it. So it's there for convenience sake. But if you want to opt for traditional dining, you could certainly do that as an upperclassman.
As a senior, I think it's so interesting talking to everybody and seeing their dining and cooking habits. Each dorm has a very different one. My dorms, especially since there's 6 of us, 5 of us cook. So we each have 1 day a week that we cook. I did this last year as well, where there were 4 of us. Each of us cooked on 1 day, which is honestly really nice because then you only have to cook once, maybe twice a week. And then you cook for the other 5 people and you have leftovers. I also know people where they all each individually cook their own meal. The guys that we're blocked with also do the same thing where they kind of do a family style dinner. Typically weekends we do like fun for yourself. I really like it because it allows for everybody to experiment with cooking. I like to cook a lot, so I do love cooking for my roommates, and everybody has a different palate. Everybody has a different kind of food that they like to cook. So we each try to do a different cuisine. Like I think we had we ordered out today, but tomorrow we're having like buttered chickpeas. Like I'll be making pasta on Sunday. We have stir fry coming up. There's a lot of different meals. So it's a lot of fun if you live with people who like to cook, because then you don't have to cook every night. You save some money and you can experience everybody else's cooking.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And to kind of keep on the same track of dining at BC, does anyone have any experiences or any knowledge on like food allergy accommodations at BC, or even if someone's coming into BC and maybe they're vegan or vegetarian, like do we have those options for all those students?
Yeah, I'm personally not a vegan or vegetarian, but I have a lot of friends who are, and I oftentimes gravitate towards those options. I think BC as a whole has great options for those students. I've also found that students who may have dietary restrictions, there's a nutritionist and a dietitian on campus. So you can definitely set up with a meeting with them prior to coming to BC and get your accommodations set through the Office of Health Services. So they're very accommodating and sort of sitting down and having the conversation with you. And I found that there's a range of gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, and also kosher options for students.
I also want to say I saw something about celiac, I think, as well. I personally am not celiac, but I know that especially at lower dining hall, if you say that you have celiac, they will cook on a different skillet for you, or they'll cook on a different grill or something, or cook it in the back. So there are options for you if you are celiac. You just have to let them know when you're going. And honestly, if you talk to the nutritionist, they will tell you exactly what to do and help you throughout the experience as well.
Perfect. All right. So this next question, I don't know why, but when I saw it, I was kind of like, oh my God, this seems so long ago. I kind of love it. The question was just, what is your first day moving in like? So I will like expand this question a little bit. So you can either talk about what your first day moving in was like, or even freshman, I think it's like freshman week. It was basically a couple of days where BC allows the freshman class to move early before all the other grades do. So you kind of have the campus to yourself, and BC also puts on a couple of events for the freshman class. So then you all get to know each other as well. So there's a lot going on when you move in, but it's fun nonetheless. If anyone wants to talk about that, that would be awesome.
I could definitely start this off. RHA does a lot with the week of welcome. For example, I remember moving in, my parents dropped me off, and then that first or second night, it usually is, they host and invite all the freshmen out to the football stadium, alumni field. And you get to sit on the turf, and they'll give you blankets that say week of welcome and the year that you're starting, and they'll play a movie for everyone, which is a really fun way to hang out with your roommates, meet new people. I'm sure a lot of clubs are always there advertising why you should join that club, and it's a really fun time to start out the week of welcome.
I personally love my week of welcome as a first year student. I felt like I moved in, and then immediately that evening activities were commencing, which is very exciting. So I remember during one of the days we had a movie night. We were all on Stokes Lawn watching Crazy Rich Asians, which is very fun. And then a big tradition we have here during weeks of welcome is a Target run. So during that week, you'll find that you're going to Target to get those last minute college essentials. And it's basically just you and your whole first year class in Target past their opening hours. So it's a great way to get those extra snacks or any other essentials you may be needing. And it was a fun thing to do with my roommate, just as we are continuing to decorate our space and figure out what we wanted it to look like.
Also speak on the first week, I can safely say, and I think everybody will agree, I have never talked to that many new people at one time in my entire life. It was so amazing. And coming from out of state, I was really nervous that I wasn't going to be able to find people. And I think Jackie can probably agree, was friends with everybody on our floor after 2 days. The Target one run was wild. We all pack into a bus and go to the Target that's like 20 minutes away or so. We had the movie, which was so much fun. I think we all plan to go into the city a lot of the time. You go and you take your photo on, like the whole class takes your class number photo with the yellow t-shirts on, which was so fun. It was a lot, but it was the most fun I've ever had and the most amount of people I've ever spoken to. And a lot of us still like we're able to form friendships that day that still are here today, 4 years later. So it was so fun, and I honestly recommend to everybody.
Yeah, to echo what everyone was saying, Welcome Week is definitely a great opportunity to really meet people in your residence hall and also in the greater first year class community. Also, because it's a week before classes, it's a good opportunity to really get used to what it's like to be living away from home and at college, but prior to the stress of classes and academics. So that's usually a great opportunity.
Yeah, and just to kind of wrap us off on that question as well, I remember coming into Boston College, I was very afraid on the car ride over because I went to a pretty small high school. We only had around 80 people in our grade, so we all really knew each other really well. The other girls in my grade from high school who came to Boston College, they were not in my residence hall, so I really was like a loner coming in. And to my surprise, a lot of the girls who actually lived like next door to me, they all had their doors propped open because they wanted like everyone's families to pop in and say hello and introduce each other and things like that, which I thought was really awesome because it ended up being that a lot of people on my floor kept their doors open that day, which kind of speaks to the friendly community that you'll be walking in on at Boston College. And then later throughout my years, I'm learning that other people in other residence halls had the exact same experience that I did. So it's actually really cool to see that students were like really trying to be welcoming, and it just makes the transition process really easy as a freshman as well. All right, another question that I have is not super related to residence hall and dining, but it's just kind of like, what is the nightlife and going out life at BC? So do you see yourselves staying on campus? Do you see yourselves going into Boston all the time? Is there a balance? This answer could vary for a lot of you, so it's kind of exciting to hear.
I think for me, I very much tried to find the balance. So you'll find that BC has over 300 clubs and student organizations. So we have a vibrant social scene here on campus. And when I was particularly looking at colleges, I was very much looking at colleges with campuses. So I think that contributes to our community as a whole. But you also find that Boston is a huge college town. We're about a 25-minute ride into the city, and we are at the T stop, the B line, the Boston College T stop. So you'll find a lot of students going into the cities for various things. We actually get free and reduced admissions to the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum, the aquarium. Something fun I did this summer with Student Nines, which is $9 baseball tickets to baseball games in Fenway Park for Boston students as a whole. So you'll find that going into the city at least maybe once or twice a week is always a fun thing to do. But if you want to stay back on campus, you will definitely, not be missing out socially. There's a huge, vibrant social scene here on campus as well.
I definitely agree with the balance. I think freshman year, you try to go out and experience Boston as much as possible. But I would say that for me and all my friends, we probably try to go out at least once a week, and not just to the center of Boston. A lot of us have been going to Alston recently. We go up and go north. Some people have cars, so we're able to go up a little bit further. But the T honestly will take you anywhere you need to go, whether it's in Boston or a little bit out. Cambridge is also super fun. We've been going there more recently. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of museums in Boston. There's a lot of restaurants in Boston. There's shopping everywhere. But also, I agree that if you want to stay on campus, there's a lot of things to do. I would say there's probably a movie night at least once a month. There's a lot of student run organizations that do different. I've seen some dinners. There's like a pottery night. There's a lot of different things you can do. Or honestly, if you want to stay in with your hall, a lot of people also stay in at night. So it really depends. I think a lot of people will probably say a balance. I know some people tend to go out a little bit more. Some people tend to stay in. But no matter where you go, you could walk 5 minutes off campus and find something maybe on Brighton campus or in Chestnut Hill. There's just so much to do anywhere. So whatever you would like to do, it'll be there.
Yeah, I think in terms of going into Boston proper, Boston, because of the sheer amount of students in colleges, there are always going to be student discounts for cultural excursions. So, for example, the Museum of Fine Arts is free for all students. The Boston Symphony Orchestra, for example, has a student card, a student discount. And Boston is actually one of the best cities in the country, I think, for classical music. And so there's a lot that you could see on the weekends and during the week for students and for the larger Boston community.
Yeah, really to echo what everyone else was saying, I find myself definitely in a mix. I love where I live the senior year in the mods, and everyone loves to stay in the mods on the weekends. But I'm an avid Boston College hockey fan. So I know in the beginning of February is the Bean Pot, and it's on a Monday night, but you will see roughly about 1,000 Boston College students making their way to TD Garden to watch us play either Northeastern, Harvard, or BU in what is really an excellent display of our school spirit. And I'll find myself at the Friday night hockey games, Saturday night hockey games, Saturday football. Yeah, there's really a great mix to do in both semesters, fall and spring.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. The next question that I have, this actually might take some time to think about, so I can answer this question first. But it was just, what is your favorite like campus memory or dorm memory? I love this question so much. So thank you for asking that. But I would say for me, I don't know if it's my favorite yet because I still have yet to graduate, but I think it's one that I'll always think about. So we have a tradition at BC called the Wells Crowther Red Bandana football game. And Wells Crowther was one of our alumni, and he always had a red bandana on him because his dad was a volunteer firefighter and he just got that as a child. So he would always walk around with this red bandana. And sadly, on the day of 9/11, he lost his life on that day. But what ended up happening was he saved around 10 to 12 people in those towers. And the way that his family was able to figure that out was because survivors were coming out and they were saying that the man in the red bandana saved them. So his parents put together that even though he had the opportunity to get out of the towers, he kept going back and forth to save as many people as he could until he sadly had to sacrifice his life. But in order for Boston College to celebrate that, we have a red bandana football game every single year. The students get together in this football stadium. We are in the middle of football season right now, but we have a red bandana football game this Friday. Very exciting. It's a night game and just really cool to be part of that student tradition that's very unique to Boston College. And we all have red bandanas. Our football team has like a red bandana uniform. And it's like one of my favorite traditions at BC because it's obviously very special, but it's like very nice to kind of like get involved with the entire student body as well.
I think for me, and this is more of a general point, but the amount of close friendships that you could potentially make while living in the residence communities it's really awesome. I think about all of the experiences of talking for hours with friends in an intimate setting in the residence halls. And I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity if I didn't live on campus. So the amount of intentional community that could be made just through something as basic as having a conversation with someone, that opportunity is always going to be present. So that is something that everyone has that experience, and it's really awesome when you get to share something so great as something as basic as having a good conversation.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. The next question that I have two more questions for all of you. If you guys can all answer it, that'd be great. The first question is simply just, what, in your opinion, is the best meal or food item that BC Dining has to offer?
I am a huge fan of Rat or Lions Hall lo mein. It's every Thursday, and you will not find me not having lo mein, if not more than one serving. It is my favorite meal on campus, and I have it with my coffee. And yeah, I will go to my grave saying how good Rat lo mein is.
I'm a huge fan of Hillside Cafe, which is one of our smaller dining hall locations. I love getting their paninis for lunch, and they usually serve with something we have called frips, which is basically a combination between fries and chips. They're really good. So it's always nice to have that in between classes with a coffee as well. Yeah, great time.
I have a few. I think on Newton campus, we are known for our paninis. I know Hillside is really good paninis, but on Newton too, we're able to go walk back from our dorm and get paninis. And that was something that I think all of us did at least once a week. The other one is that's more recent is the Ratskeller in Lions Hall has actually been serving sushi. I gotta say, I think they're so good. I was really genuinely surprised. There's so much sushi you can get and it's on your dining plan. So I heavily recommend that. And then I guess the final one would be on lower sophomore year. Everybody would get the Screaming Eagle and you get that over rice. So good.
Yeah, I'll have to echo the Screaming Eagle. In lower, the steak and cheese with the Chipotle mayo sauce is a very popular option. So can't go wrong with that.
And I cannot let this question go unanswered without saying Holy Grain. So Holy Grain is on lower dining hall. And my friends and I would get so excited. One of my best friends and I would check the lower dining hall menu like every single day. And if there was Holy Grain, we would like freak out until it was lunchtime. But basically you get into line and you get to tell them what grain you want, what protein you want, and if you want a fried egg on top. And then they do like a little like secret sauce. Don't ask me what's in the sauce. I have no idea, but it's so amazing. It's like a whole like hibachi experience. You see them cook it right in front of you, just like a Screaming Eagle. It's just such a good meal at BC. So there's a lot to get from there. And then my last question for all of you is obviously about residential life at BC. So we discussed a lot of residence halls already, but is there a building that you have yet to live in or just never got to live in that you wish that you did or maybe like experienced? I can also get us started with this. I know it's like a loaded question. I would say for me as a senior, I know that it's typical to say that a senior wants to live in the mods. I'm in Ignacio Hall right now, so Iggy. But actually, there is a newer building at BC called 2150. We call it 2150. And I just think they have like the best little study rooms ever. It's like just so big and so nice. Their lounges are amazing. Again, I mentioned that they're newer, so it's like a nicer building for seniors to live in. And also, I remember that their bedrooms are just like bigger. So it's just like really cool to kind of have like that aspect of it. I have a few friends who live in that building who really like it.
When I was a junior, I loved my time in Stayer, but I would have liked to live in the Reservoir Apartments, or most students call it 2K. It's 17 floors, about half a mile off campus, and it's real apartment style living. One of the bedrooms has walk-in closets and like a master style bathroom. It is gorgeous. It looks out onto the Chestnut Hill Reservoir and on the other side onto Commonwealth Ave. It's just really gorgeous, but I do still love Stayer.
I would say sophomore year, I did love living in Walsh. It was super fun. I would have loved to either live in Vandy or Vanderslice or 2K as well, solely because Vandy has AC, which we all love. And 2K is so nice. It would have been really nice to have a kitchen as well and live off a little bit. And you can do that through the healthy living community. I do love Walsh. I am partial to Walsh, but it would have been really fun to live in those two.
I think for me, it would be really cool to live in the mods, such a quintessential BC experience. So definitely the mods.
I'd also personally say 2K because it's sort of a nice off-campus feel with the apartment, and also a kitchen has its great perks. But I know you guys were talking about Stayer, and I think Stayer is honestly underrated. It's in a pretty good location. It's very close to lower dining hall. I think it's at sort of the central point of lower campus. So I think location-wise and also just sort of the view you get as well as the study rooms, that would have been a nice place to live.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Team stayer forever. I know Izzy was off campus, but I'd always have to brag to her about my stayer living. So thanks for mentioning that, Maimuna. I want to thank all of you at home for joining us tonight. Tonight was my last panel as moderator, and next week's session will be hosted by one of our very special admissions counselors, so get excited for that. Next week's panel will highlight students who have had a special journey throughout their years at BC, and I know it's going to be absolutely fantastic, so make sure that you register for that. It'll be the same time next week, so Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank my panelists. You were all amazing, and I really enjoyed hearing more about all of your BC experiences, and I can't wait to see you all around campus. Again, we have our emails that are attached to all of our little name tags. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We'll be so happy to get to those. And I just want to thank you all again, and I hope you all have a wonderful night. Thank you.